Masterclass Mini. We're looking at contribution selling as part of the Master Plan series. And today I'm in conversation with Mike Pick, who's one of our lead Masterclass sales trainer. Hello, Mike.
Hello there.
And those who don't know, he's also a very good drummer. So lots of good stuff about Mike. So I know, Mike, a lot of people struggle with prospecting and getting through to people. So just thinking about how you would look at that and how you would help people to do that, to improve our chances.
Okay, fine. Well, I think the first thing to say is that no one finds cold calling easy. In fact, many salespeople fear the task. They find it a chore, boring, a waste of time, or perhaps something they've just been told to do. Yet, done well, it can be the key to a very healthy sales pipeline and opportunities. And it's certainly a skill that the top quartile, top 10, 20% of salespeople have mastered. And indeed, people like Alan Sugar, Richard Branson, sales directors in your own company, CEOs, they've all had to cold call at some point in their career.
So what would your advice be to make a really good cold call?
Okay. Well, I think it's like a lot of things. It's all about preparation. And there are three important steps to take before you start cold calling. The first step is to set aside 25 minutes to perhaps 50 minutes maximum of a cold calling session where you're not going to be interrupted, and these short bursts can be very, very effective. And what Masterclass has found over the years is that if people do, say, 3, 4, or 5 short 25-minute bursts during the day when they're fully energized and focused, that can have much better results than just ad hoc cold calling all day. So the first thing is be prepared and get those 25 to 50-minute bursts in place. The second thing is setting objectives. Now, I say plural because we want to try and get the maximum out of every call. So here's an example of some objectives. Number one primary objective, get an appointment. Number two, if we can't get an appointment, let's agree a follow-up call. And if you can't do that, make the most use of that time on the telephone with the prospect, maybe confirming their role, anyone else involved in decision-making, the size of the company, who their existing supplier is, and so on and so forth. And the reason we have several objectives is, A, to make sure that every call we get something out of it, even if it is just cleaning the database, and it also helps fight off what we call rejection fatigue. The third step, and this is probably the most important, is to write out and rehearse your first 15 seconds. When you get through to that prospect, you need to be short and sharp in your delivery. You've got to say your name, the company, and the reason for the call. And then, as soon as you said the reason for the call, you fire in your first question. And then, of course, you've got to be ready when that prospect hopefully answers that question. You've got to be ready with your follow-up question and start to take the conversation into the direction that you want it to go.
And that's really sound advice there, Mike. I know I've come across them, I'm sure you have too, the gatekeepers, or sometimes the Rottweilers as we call them.
Yeah.
What's your advice for that?
Well, you're absolutely correct. I mean, the above that I talked about then does assume that you've got past the gatekeeper. Gatekeepers, of course, come in several different guises. You've got your receptionist, you've got your PA, perhaps a colleague in the department of the prospect you want to call. But they've all been told really to filter calls and to try and stop any cold callers or salespeople getting through. And they've been told to ask three things. One is, who is it? Where are they from? And what's the call about? And they have to find that out before they dare put the call through. So in Masterclass, when we're running these courses, we developed a technique where we preempt the role of that Rottweiler, as you called it, and we try and transform them back into a nice soft little puppy and put us through. And we do that with a very specific, authoritative yet polite way of using key psychological words that gives them that information, and as I say, then turns that Rottweiler into a puppy and puts us through. And a bit like the television program, we actually call this the dog whisperer routine.
And it works. And if you want to know more about that, have to speak to us. Okay, that's great. So I guess the other thing that comes up so much now is you get through and you get to a voicemail, and the big thing is, to leave or not to leave, that is the question. What's your advice on that, Mike?
I agree. So you're absolutely right. You've got past the gatekeeper, you've done your job, you're ready to deliver your 15 seconds, and horror of horror, oh no, it's the dreaded voicemail. So what do? I think at first you probably would not leave a message. You would hang up and maybe try again and put it on your list to try later that day or another day. What you can also do, of course, is go back to the gatekeeper, dial again, and say, you've just put me through to John or Susan. They're on voicemail. They are in today, aren't they? So it assumes that you know them and that you've been told they're in today. Maybe they're expecting your call. And you can then get into a brief conversation to find out if they're in or if they're in meetings, when's a good time to call back. So you can always do that. At some point, you will get to a situation where you feel, well, I've been trying several times. I'm tempted to leave a voicemail. Now, if you do leave a voicemail, what we say is make it interesting, intriguing, and put some curiosity into that message. So what we say is leave your name and your number and say something like, your name came up in conversation yesterday. I believe I need to speak to you as soon as possible. My name is this is my number, and you can get me on that number between these times or on this day in between these times. So it's very intriguing, and it doesn't work every time, but very often people, the curiosity will get the better of them, and they may then call you back.
Oh, that's good advice, Mike.
Yeah. Okay, so I think probably in conclusion, I mean, I've got some top tips that listeners may be interested in. So I think first one is do your cold calling regularly. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. And as I said earlier, do it in short bursts. Keep records, how many calls you're making, how many conversations you have, how many primary and secondary objectives you achieve. And then strive to make small gains over a period of time. Secondly, make every call progressive, even if, as we said earlier, cleaning your database is the sort of final objective you can reach. And finally, make the conversation interesting to the prospect. They don't want to hear all about you, they want to talk about themselves. And make it an interactive conversation, not an interrogation. Keep it short. Don't be tempted to then give a demonstration of your product or service over the phone, and then, of course, close on the primary objective as soon as you can. So I think really with those top tips and the other things we've discussed today, if you can develop a good calling technique and it becomes a habit, then that is a very important foundation for your long-term sales career.
That's great. Thank you, Mike. Really good advice, as always. And if anyone's interested in hearing more about it, or indeed want to talk to one of us or understand a bit more about what we offer, do please contact us. And thank you again, Mike, for being in conversation with us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.